different year. Good time. Okay, I'll do a real quick roll for people that are on the phone. I'm just reading in the order it's on there, so when you hear your name, please make a noise or squeal or something. If you're on the phone. Dr. Lynch. Dr. Seth. Dr. Ellie. Dr. Vargo. Dr. Flory. Dr. Peterson. Mr. Knoll.
Here.
Okay, we'll pass this around then, again. Cool. Dr. Farney. Here. Cool. Dr. Krosick. Dr. Lum. Dr. Singer. Dr. Stevenson. Dr. Falk. Mr. Reisner.
Here.
Okay, Mr. Wilson. Dr. Walters is traveling. Dr. Winter. Dr. Borton. Dr. Tanaka is tied up. Dr. Cosgrove.
Here.
Thank you, Ed, I heard you. Dr. Bart. Dr. Martin. Dr. Mangione.
Here.
Very good, sir. Dr. Kenyon or Dr. Killian? Dr. Visser. Dr. McGee. Dr. Collins. Dr. Teuscher. Ms. Moses.
Here.
Cool. Ms. Kame. Ms. Broadbent.
We're both here.
Awesome. Pass this around for those that are here to get a chance to sign in. Thank you. We don't have a Dr. Clemency, Dr. Seth, or Dr. Walters for CMAC Subsco report, so I'm just going to start with approval of the old minutes. The October meeting minutes were attached to the email and are included here. After a quick review, I would love someone to make a motion to accept them or make a motion for correction. Motion. To accept. Is there a second? Right. Thank you. Any opposition? Right, we accept the October minutes. Thank you. Excuse me. Nothing right now in the chairman's report. The bylaws are still in the office of my attorney friend who, when he's doing it for free, doesn't feel compelled to do it quickly, and I understand that. So I will send those out for review once I get them back. And that is the bulk of what I had. So we'll start right away with the Trauma Advisory Committee. That's on the phone.
Hello, those of you who received copies of the reports, it's detailed there for you. But the RTAC did meet on November 18th, and some of the highlights included that we sent a letter to the WREMAC stating our position on EMS administration of antibiotics for suspected open fractures. New York State is looking for input from the regions. They essentially are short funds and are looking for funds to do an official study. But in the meantime, they're looking for opinions from regions on how to improve access to trauma care, such as, is there a need for a level 3 center in your area? We went over pediatric readiness status for hospitals in the region. We reviewed mechanism of injury data from ECMC, comparing it to other trauma centers across the US. It's our TQIP data. We reviewed a tabletop MCI drill from November. We reappointed Dr. Flynn as the staff representative. And we reviewed a rural MCI case and identified several opportunities for improvement, as well as challenges obtaining PCRs when the patient goes someplace else first. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Beth. That'll bring us to program agencies, and we'll start with STEMS. Alicia?
Hi, my report was included with Karen's email yesterday. Just a few highlights. In December, we attended State EMS Council, and additionally, while we were up there, we attended Rural Health Council. Donna was in the vetting process to join Rural Health Council. She actually officially received her vetting announcement or paperwork that she's an official member yesterday. So we were able to attend that, and the Commissioner of Health was at the meeting and gave a report, and he did share some information and talked about workforce development and the importance of recognizing EMS So that was pretty great that in his presentation, he did speak a bit about EMS. Southern Healthcare System also was awarded the Vital Signs Conference EMS Agency Innovation Award for recruitment and retention for the EMTB Academy that we do. So that was great to get some recognition for that. We held a leadership training in the, I guess, winter, and then right now it's the monthly check-ins. So we appreciate everyone who was attending that. And then lastly, the paramedic program for our region began last week. It's the 3 sites like before, Jamestown, Olean, and Belmont in Allegheny County. And there are 44 students across the 3 sites. So we're excited for those 44 participants to start this long journey to become paramedics. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. UBMD.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. For those that don't know me, my name is Zach Polvito. This is my first meeting with this group with starting with the program agency. So our report was also attached to Karen's email. It was rather long because I am rather long-winded, so I'll try to keep it short here. I think we've spoken to most everybody, at least in our 2 BREMSCOs, about the portal update that we went through in October. But just to bring it here, there was a update that was made. There was a few items that we caught kind of through that process. We've identified, and I think there's some fixes in the works here. Really, it came down to when agencies were submitting their skills, their WREMAC skills, and whether that showed a provider is offline or online. Additionally, we've been reminding our agencies in both Big Lakes and in Wyoming Erie about the updates in the portal, and that we prefer as policy, whereas our position is that the agency representatives themselves update their agency and provider information in the system. Obviously, we're there to help and support, but it's their data, their people, they should be doing that. As Alicia mentioned in her report, we did attend the December SEMSCO and CMAC meeting in Troy. Part of that was the release of the workforce report for some updated data. Part of that, I've grouped a bunch of things, one of them being the EMS leadership class that was offered through STEMS. I took part of as well, and some other classes that were offered through Vital Signs as part of overall leadership development, which is something that I'm working on with Rob through our agency to help kind of bring to the region. Contracts are still ongoing and still a work in progress for the program agencies as well as the regions. Other than that, our work includes working with agencies of both REMSCOs to audit their CLIA license numbers, as well as their information being up to date through what we can access through the database from Wadsworth, what we have on file, and updating that. Upcoming, again, we have attended a number of meetings, the Vital Signs, the December meetings, our Big Lakes, our Wyoming Erie regional meetings. A couple other things that I'm looking at just from our agency, program agency, one of them being the staying on top of the OSHA 29 CFR 1910-156 standard, which is the fire brigade. While that now includes EMS, so those updates or potential updates include EMS, but obviously a number of our agencies on the volunteer side are both fire and EMS. So changes that may affect one side can affect the other. So we are just monitoring that. There's really not much for us to do at this point, but we are just monitoring and staying on top of those updates as they happen. Lastly, we've been in the middle of a move the last couple of days. So our office is moving off the 4th floor. We're staying in the same building, 77 Goodell Street, but we are moving from the 4th floor where we used to be next to the Matters office. We are moving downstairs to the 3rd floor, which is the corporate space for emergency medicine. So we will now be down there. So some changes will come with that. Number of training notices and informational items disseminated, and won't read through all of them. And I highlighted a couple items in the report that happened within our REMSCOs. Most recently, Wyoming Erie, There was a CON action, related to South Line. And in Big Lakes, Niagara County EMS has, informed us that they are working on their CON, for their rollover from the municipal, CON to a permanent one. With a couple of upcoming meetings, including our Big Lakes meeting in January, the state EMS council meetings in February, and the next Wyoming Erie, Remsco, and Mark.
Exactly. We don't have a collaborative protocol committee representative here today, so we will defer that to the next meeting. Dr. Borton was not on the phone. I don't know if you joined us for QI, Dr. Borton. Dr. Tanaka is occupied today, so that will bring us, I'm not aware of anything that's being reviewed that needs discussion by the entire committee. But if there is, we'll talk about it next time. So that brings us to the stroke committee.
Just left over from the last meeting, we're just asking the REMAC to vote on BFAST as the stroke assessment and FAST-ED as the LVO scale. The only other thing that we have is recently it's been brought to our attention a couple of stroke CMEs that are being presented that aren't, don't really have the correct information in it. So we are just asking that the REMAC request that stroke CME be put through the committee or this committee, the stroke committee, to make sure that it has correct information in it before it's put out.
We can encourage people to do that.
Yeah.
I certainly
we
can't
obviously can't make
compel
it,
anyone
just
to do that.
ask that
Yeah, sure.
Not necessarily approved, just review.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that's presented on behalf of the region, but certainly if there was, that would, and we can absolutely encourage people as a resource.
Thank
To
you.
make sure your presentation has the most up-to-date information.
Thank you.
That sounds very good. And nothing else right now, other than the
Just the
FAST-ED, okay. So yeah, the information on BFAST and FAST-ED was discussed at the October meeting, and that information was sent out. It is what a number of our neighboring areas are using for both just general stroke assessment and LVO detection. So I guess I would open this up, unless there's a motion, then we can discuss first. Usually we motion first, then discuss the motion. Is there a motion to accept this as on behalf of, as our regional standard, or do you want to discuss? Motion. Is there a second? All right, second, Dr. Carney. Any opposition to the Western region adopting BFAST and FAST-ED as our respective stroke screening score and LVO screening tools for our providers?
No, I think it's
Hearing
it's a good thing, I think, Doc. I think we should, as a body, entertain discussion on some sort of training and rollout. Now, it's relatively rudimentary, but I think if we're going to adopt something like this, we ought to put our money where our mouth is and offer at least some signage, postings, and some trainings.
I would agree with that. I would actually recommend that I would move to amend that motion to include, we'll defer rolling this out and announcing it until we have education and a plan in place. Either materials that agencies can use on their own, if the medical director is okay with that, and or a way to request education either online, asynchronously, or someone be willing to do it in person.
And Catholic Health and Collider are working on a combined education to be able to put out that we'll do and we'll let others use as well, so that everybody has the same information.
Great, okay.
That's great
All right,
to
so,
hear, because I need to share with you, program agencies do not have contracts since July 1st, and neither do the councils. So we don't even have award letters yet, and we've been working since July 1 with no contracts.
Wow, that is a long time. Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts on the stroke motion on the table? Anybody want to accept my suggested addendum? Dr. Carter, any opposition? Very well, the motion as amended carries. BFAST and FAST-ED will be the stroke screening tools, officially recommended by the region. This announcement and rollout will be deferred until the education provided by the stroke committee is available. Thank you. That brings us to the IFT committee. I heard Todd on the phone.
Thank you, Mr.
Morning.
Chairman. I'm pleased to report that we have been active since the October meeting.
Yes.
I've got to tip my hat to the folks working on the IFT committee, so thank you very much. Having said that, I do want to encourage more physician involvement as we work through the rework of this this protocol. Progress report up to this point, we've moved through policies and procedures, specialty care transport introduction, and we are now working on the embedded SCT guidelines. So we've done a fair bit of work. I think we are achieving the goals that the WREMAC recommended, that we kind of reattack this thing. I think we're making good progress. I fully expect the rework to be done in the next month or two, and then our focus is going to transition into developing a training program for the protocol itself.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm aware of those meetings, and I have one or two people I can reach out to see if they'd be willing to lend, you know, sort of some physician eyes to it and give you some suggestions.
Yeah, I just want to make sure clinically we're on the right track, you know, operationally and from a policy perspective, that's a little less kind of clinical intensive, but we are working through the embeds and I think physician involvement on where the hard stops are and where the medical command contacts are. I think it's important that we do have a clinical eye look at these things, just so we're not just spinning our wheels and making a product that is not going to be acceptable clinically to the physicians on the body.
I agree. I appreciate that. Just one thing to make sure, I know one of the things we discussed last time, are you all working on like a change log between the old ones and the current new recommended ones?
So I am going to defer to my excellent assistant, Alicia.
So yes, a changelog will be made once it's done. There's a lot of changes, so it's probably going to be like a track change type document. But yes, that is something that we plan to have, because since I believe the last ones were updated in 2012, 2011, so they have been changing quite a bit. So.
Right. Well, we appreciate all the work that you're putting into it. Thank you both very much, and to the rest of the committee. There's no other old business other than the bylaws review, unless someone has any. Okay, that brings us to new business, and before our typical approvals, there's a proposal that was sent out with the meeting agenda proposing the creation of a centralized medical control phone number. I suspect there's going to be some decent discussion about this, but Mr. Wallensack.
Well, thank you. So I just want to clarify that this is my proposal as me as an individual provider and not necessarily the opinion of, you know, the agency whose uniform I'm literally wearing at the moment. But so I'm just going to go over real quick, not to rehash what was sent, but just go over the big picture of why we could and also then separately why we should. You know, from the standpoint of convenience for the providers, it'd be nice to have a centralized bank of phone numbers that are associated with the hospitals. I know sometimes that, you know, the hospitals have issues with phones, and, you know, it's hard for large organizations, especially that have multiple shifts of people, to update all the providers that, hey, this phone number has been temporarily changed. You know, so if you need to call med control to use the new phone number, and when that change goes back into effect, you can use a normal number. So having a centralized bank of numbers that's WREMAC controlled would be beneficial from that standpoint. But beyond that is also the added capability of being able to centrally manage the recording of the med control contacts. It's beneficial from the standpoint of like the region having the ability to do some research on that if they want to look at the med control contacts and see what the nature of the discussions are, and see if that's something that we recommended to like SEMSCO for a consideration for, you know, it needs to be a protocol change if something's frequent contact point, or any other, you know, data analysis standpoint. So there's a number of reasons why we could do this. The more pressing reason that recently come up, it's the why we should do this, and was brought up either at CMAC or SEMSCO, and I can't tell the difference. Was there was an issue in another region where a provider had some sort of quality of care issue and was taken offline, and because he asserted that an intervention was ordered by med control to be performed. So the WREMAC investigated as they're required to, and contacted the hospital to see if they can get the reporting of the med control contact. The hospital has the reporting, but they refuse to release that information. So the region actually came to the CMAP or SEMSCO asking for legal assistance to try and subpoena those records in order to get a copy of that reporting. So it would seem that in some respects, in some regions, some hospitals, that there might not always be the cooperation aspect to provide that reporting to, the individual REMAC to further their investigation. So from that side of things, it might be more beneficial if the REMAC were to be the one to be essentially the custodian of those reportings. And the hospital would be obviously going to have their own system, but this would also allay the issue of, some hospitals maybe not having their numbers recorded necessarily, not making compliance with the reporting requirement. Having it essentially be recorded would take care of that issue.
Thoughts and discussion, Mr. Gill?
Thanks. Back in 2019, the county came to body here and offered up such a similar situation to that. The county has a dedicated line to medical direction, 898 MERS, that any provider can call that number. And once they get into MERS, they say where they want to go, and then we direct the call to that number. We disconnect. However, that call is reported and will be made available for quality assurance research, all that sort of stuff. So that exists right now. And it's been used not as much as we had hoped. Over the years, we get a couple of hundred a year. But we'd like to, offer that up at no cost to the system. And we just have to work out access and quality assurance and stuff like that. Because it's been a while since we had those documents put together.
Any thoughts, others?
One thing I might add is, in addition to having like the one number, to rule them all kind of number, to have a direct dial number for each hospital where if I'm calling, say, Miller Suburban, I just want to call the one number and not have to go through a phone tree or explain to someone, hey, you need to put me through to Suburban. I just want to call the one number and be connected. So I think having like a bank of numbers that's mapped to each individual hospital, in addition to the one overall, if you don't happen to know the number for, some hospital that you infrequently go to, you just call the main number and then navigate through a list of options. But having like a bank so that you can just do a direct one-to-one mapping and not have to, go through a menu or a person, just go straight through would be most efficient, convenient from a provider standpoint.
Well, the purpose of it is to go to the one number. You don't have to worry about the hospitals changing numbers because we'll keep up on the numbers. They don't have to dial the second time because it'll be put through to that direct. All right, and it's to me, we brought this up years ago. I personally, at the hospital, I wouldn't want my med direction number being on somebody's personal cell phone. Because who knows who's gonna call up and say, hey, I got the sniffles today, not that it's ever happened, but the potential here. So you have the one bank at MERS that's kept with up to date with the hospital numbers, and then the only one number you're gonna need to know is the 858 MERS, 898 MERS number. All right, and that's why we actually brought it up in the past. It's that way you have the one number to call, and we can take multiple calls. We can take 7, 8, 9 calls, and we saw plenty of banks to go through if there's a mass thing. So I like I said, offer that I could discuss this more, see if it could be fitted to what you're looking for. And it exists and it's at no cost to the providers.
And yeah, you record those on your equipment.
Plus county equipment, right? Now, there's only limited people who have access to that. And then we want to expand this a little more, we can talk about how we're going to get that done. But it actually came about years ago when one of the hospitals needed to get a new recorder and it was $60,000. Who has $60,000? So we were able to put it together and we haven't really pushed it out. All right, but it's available now.
I would imagine there's probably, I would imagine with the rest of the 911 calls that are recorded, there's probably prescribed periods of time that you have to maintain those records for review, right? I would imagine these calls can be kept or will be kept kind of the same or comparable period of time.
Let me show you how smart I am. How long do you put?
10 years.
10 years. Boom.
Okay, yeah, I think that certainly answers a lot of the potential questions. Would you or perhaps one of your colleagues be willing to write up like a little compare, just take this and we can compare.
And see if we can match that.
And then we can discuss next time and perhaps have a vote if we're ready, or at least discuss more options. You know, that would also, whether at MERS or somewhere else, a centralized location would also, you know, let hospitals sort of off the hook if they are not currently compliant with the REMAX reporting policy, or maybe they pay for a service and they no longer wish to do that. This would be a way to do that if it's region wide.
Yeah.
I did get an email in advance about this proposal. And I believe the answer is no, nothing we would do here would stop a hospital from maintaining its own set of recordings on the calls that come in on the line they specify. So, you know, Suburban, ECMC, VA, whoever it is, Buffalo General can still maintain their own recordings for their own reviews. But this would provide potential, regardless of the way we do it, would provide another avenue that an agency or a medical director could request something and not have to necessarily go through a hospital that may run into legal advisors that may restrict some of their ability to share some of those things. So we give another avenue to get at that information. So
But
I'd
if
like
I-
to just.
Can I just
stand at the next-
can I ask a question? It's Ed
Yeah.
Castro. Just, so if it sounds like it's a great idea because it'll simplify things dramatically. We would have free access, all the hospitals would have free access to the data as well.
I think that's part of the thing to explore. I think what maybe Mr. Gilbride here can answer, but the impression I got was there'd be some access provided to like the region or the QI committee or whatnot, but please.
Well, my hopes would be, yes, first off, to the individual hospitals, if they
Okay.
want to do their own spread, but I think it'd be important that this body has access to it for quality assurance
Okay,
on a regional basis.
okay. So Ed, it sounds like the answer is
So
yes.
So both,
Yeah.
you know, from an EMS standpoint, for sure, EMS agencies and the REMAX should have access, but would the hospitals have access? That's a concern that because there's no point in doing double duty. If Erie County can record all the data and the calls, and then it can be accessed, there's no reason for Buffalo General or Mercy or Sisters or Fillmore Suburban to do that as well. It costs money and it takes time and energy. So why should we repeat it? Can we find out if that's possible or what will happen? Because the county, you know, the county runs ECMC, but the county doesn't run any other hospital. So there needs to be ready access for each of the institutions, whether it's an EMS institution or a hospital, to be able to get access to that data, as far as I'm concerned. Does that seem reasonable?
So I think the answer is that you would include hospital partners.
Sure,
Getting it.
sure. If the call went through us, went to ECMC wants access to it, of course.
Yeah.
Now, we wouldn't give them access to Buffalo General.
Right.
Just pick it up.
But like the region QI committee would be able to get access to all of them. Yeah.
No, but we'd
So
have,
that-
each individual hospital would have access to all the calls that are directed to that hospital.
Yes.
Okay. And one more question, just as a comment. I'm very in favor of this because yesterday we just had a patient brought into to Mercy Hospital at medical, someone else gave medical direction on someone who'd been down for an hour and 40 minutes. And they were told to be transported to my building so that they could have a point of care ultrasound to see if there was wall movement. I don't know. But it just seemed like, you know, at an hour and 40 minutes, you're dead. You're no longer alive when you have no pulse for that long. So anyway, I mean, we should be directing calls we shouldn't have medical direction being given out when someone else is being taken to another facility. I think that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So if this is something that will facilitate, you know, contact between a rig in the field to their destination hospital, that makes great sense.
All right, a lot to chew on for next time, but I'm glad you're here to fill in those blanks. And Don, I thank you very much for proposing this. And this is an important issue and can help the region a lot. We just gotta figure out how to do it. Sounds like there's definitely support here. So thank you very much. We have some mass approvals to discuss, and then there's Winchester. All right, so adding to this list is Winchester Fire from Dr. Mangione to Dr. Coretta. Other medical director changes, MTS from Dr. Wislinski to Dr. Carney. PAD notifications of intent for Alexander Fire and Snyder Industries. BLS 12-lead approval for Erie County EMS, Big Tree EMS, and Hamburg Volunteer Fire Department. Any opposition to any of these? All right, I can naturally ask for a motion. So is there a motion to approve them in mass? And then I'll take your no opposition. Motion. Thank you, Dr. McNair. Is there a second? Oh, we got two. Excellent. Thank you. All right, then hearing no opposition, these are all accepted and approved. Any other new business?
Want to make a quick point about some stuff that has come up. Just in terms of destination policy, obviously every hospital in the region right now is super busy. And with that, I think it's kind of important to remind everybody to make sure that if there's a specialty need for a patient following the REMAC destination policy, that they go to the right place. I know sometimes there are patients who want to go somewhere else. And I think if there's a concern that the facility they want to go to cannot provide their needs based on their chief complaint, that, certainly feel free to contact medical control at that facility to talk to the patient, to get them to the right place. Because right now, that can lead to delays in patient care and kind of delay their ultimate disposition. Things like trauma, things like pediatrics, things like procedures or surgeries that are done in a different facility. Trying to route these patients to the right place is important. I know Beth had put a trauma case in her report as well, that probably should have gone, right to the right place to begin with. Not trying to trump patient choice, but certainly engaging all your resources, including medical control, to make sure the patient understands the consequences of not going to the recommended facility is important. And also, if that discussion occurs from a provider standpoint, just reflecting that on your PCR, write it in your narrative. So that there's not a question later about why this person ended up here when maybe they should have gone somewhere else. So just want to emphasize that. Also, in that same vein, that destination should not be trumped. Again, we know we're busy, but wait time shouldn't trump appropriate destination. So even though children's is busy and you have a bad pediatric patient, that shouldn't necessarily mean you don't go there just because they're busy. So just want to make sure that's clear as well.
That's also the destination policy.
Yeah, I know. Just echoing the existing destination
Yeah.
policy, but high points.
I know that like there's a lot of pressure on an EMS agency when you walk into an ED of like, what are you doing? Right? And the facility I work at is very good at doing it. And we are working on that, right? So, but please try not to let that influence you, right? Do what's best for the patients. If that means, saying, hey, I gotta call my doctor and put Dr. McNair on the phone at Suburban, and he'll say that we don't have what you need here. I know your doctor's here, but if he were here right now, he would say, go to Buffalo General. Right? And let us try to talk him to what we think, what we all seem to think is the right place. If you can't, then you can't, right? If they have the capacity to decide, they won't talk to the doc, okay. But again, document that just to protect yourself, protect your agency, and protect the patient. Why did they wind up in the wrong place? That's what they want. And we express to them what our concerns are. So, there's certain things I'd rather defend. I'd rather defend kidnapping than wrongful death, but I'm not going to tell you to kidnap people. Right? So use what leverage you do have, which is getting one of us on the phone or whatever, to try to talk them into doing what is safest for them. And there is some like literature, people have done studies, like when a doc gets on the phone and actually talks to the patient, they are much more likely to A, go to a hospital, and B, go to a hospital that we think is a specialty center. So let us help you do that. Let us be the bad guy. Let us, if you're having trouble with the cops, I'll talk to the cops. I don't care. Right? I can't make them do their job, but I can usually talk them into doing something reasonable to help us get the job done. And I've done that before. So we just gotta figure out how to work together and get it done. And I know I can only speak for ECMC, not officially, but as a guy that works there, it is really busy. We're doing what we can. We know everyone is busy. And please accept my apologies for the attitude that you will undoubtedly get on particularly bad days. You're doing the right thing, just keep doing it. Right? Just when everyone's in a better mood, everyone is nicer. So we're feeling stressed. We know you're feeling the stress, but sometimes you forget that you're also feeling that stress. So I try to remind people, I try to remind myself on bad days. But that's everyone try to just do what we've been doing for a really long time and do better than anybody else does. Any other new business? Is there a motion to adjourn among you?
Typical question. And communication course made available yet?
I love
Years,
that.
buddy, years.
I love that, and no, it's like 3 or 4 years old. No, but I will commit to having a draft ready for you to watch and try to roll out by March 15th.
Which year?
This one.
Fair question.
It's gonna be, 2025 is gonna be a banner year, just watch. I'm writing it down. Because otherwise I forget what day I said it. March 15th, got it, ready. It's almost there. 2025 is the year, it might not be March, but it'll be the year. Top,
Yeah, we, from South Line Fire Company, I our CON to become permanent as well as an expansion of the territory. I was just wondering if we could clarify, I spoke earlier to a couple of people, to clarify, we were in Brems, they were voted 17-0 to give us from temporary to permanent, but the expansion of territory got turned down. There's a single vote during that meeting, with a predetermined motion that we were going to vote on, which was we become permanent, but the expansion was denied. Kind of believe that that should have been separate votes on our expansion with our permanent, CON. But it seemed to be lumped into one, and that was the expression that we took, that, we're thankful that it became permanent, wanted that, but we also, looking at the study that was done within the town independently, that showed that the agency that currently is doing a good job, but still has 7% of the calls not covered. With the recommendation of that, we said we were gonna expand our territory, not to compete, but just to be the backup if they needed it, because we're the only service in the town that can transport. We were just wondering, is there anything else we should do? Or, obviously we'll have to file an appeal, but I believe the letter of recommendation comes from you guys moving forward to the state.
I certainly can't comment on the procedural side of kind of what happened at a meeting that I wasn't at and had no authority in, but. I can speak here, I think the region is happy to support the expansion of agencies that believe there's a need in an area that is also expressing a need. So if that is something, if you do proceed with an appeal and want to request a letter of support from the region, I think we would discuss whether or not to provide that, like we would CS license applications and other, level of care upgrade and things like that. So it's something the region would consider if that's a route you choose.
Is it even to the part of an appeal, being that it's not even to the state yet?
It's not even really something that the region has a whole lot to do with, like at least not the REMAC part of the regional government, right? Like, it doesn't matter as much to us whether the operation gets bigger or not, right? It's like, we're just in it for the medical oversight.
Right, I'm glad you said that, because then the vote that was done by Remco was exactly that point. It was predetermined vote saying you guys will go permanent, but the expansion was denied. How did that happen?
I do not know. It depends, I don't know who made the motion or whether it was filed in advance. That would be a regional council question, unfortunately. I'm sorry to pump, but I certainly don't want to say something unturned.
I was just understanding that.
Yeah, and I don't know that a letter from us is required, but if it is, or you ask for one, we would certainly discuss providing.
Yeah, we have an organization that have gotten no literature back or anything about any decisions. It's just been going to the meeting secretary.
Yeah, this committee wasn't and isn't required to be consulted for that kind of stuff, so I don't have any insight I can offer you, unfortunately. Sorry, Tom.
That's okay.
Any other new business? Or discussion on that? All right, I did hear a motion to adjourn. I think it might have been Dr. Carr. I'm gonna assign it to Dr. Carr. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much for your time today, and thanks again to our hosts for providing our space. We'll see you next time.